Continuing our conversation with Dr. Edward de Bono. So we were talking as we went to break about complacency.
Yes. A colleague of mine, Grant Todd, was doing work with my 6 hats system with juries in court. Using this system, they reached unanimous decisions very quickly. The judges were so impressed that in at least 3 states, I'm not sure exactly which, I think it's Massachusetts, Wisconsin, the judge can now recommend that the jury be trained in parallel thinking, 6 hats thinking. What is that? Instead of arguing, because the Greeks had nothing to do after lunch, so they invented argument, there's the white hat, everyone looks at information, red hat's emotions and feeling, black hat is critical, yellow hat is benefits, green hat is possibilities, creative, blue hat's organizing. Last year I was told by a Nobel Prize economist, he said last week I was in Washington at the top economics meeting, they were using our 6 hats. And it's much, much quicker, it takes 1/10 of the time of ordinary argument. Argument is an extremely inefficient method.
Does government, as a matter of course, tend to employ good thinking practices?
No. Government has to employ visibly traditional thinkers. So the public can say, oh yes, these are good thinkers. They're not.
How much of what we see in thinking is the result of, or poor thinking, is the result of culture? And we can wander into dangerous territory with this as well, because I don't like to generalize. How much is the result of genetics? How much is the result of environment? How much is the result of behavioral characteristics, diet, things like that?
Yeah. All those are true, but much more importantly, we don't pay attention to thinking. There is no university faculty of thinking. Just think, the most important human skill above any other, thinking. No university faculty. We assume, or have assumed, that philosophy was about thinking. Rubbish. We've assumed that psychology is about thinking. Rubbish. I am professor of thinking at 5 universities now, including Da Vinci Professor of Thinking at the University of Advancing Technology in Arizona, and Pretoria and Central England and so on. So the answer to your question is all these things you mentioned are important, but we simply have not focused on it. In school, thinking should be a key subject, as central as mathematics or history.
So we're teaching, and some would argue we're not teaching very effectively, in schools we're teaching facts, we're teaching memorization. There was a time back, what was it, in the 1930s where the famed educator Dewey was trying a concept about more interested in learning and the learning process.
But you see, what you've just said, the fact that computers have made us so information conscious that we believe that information is enough. And that's very, very dangerous. I do a lot of work with major corporations. What they do, collect information on their computers, analyze it, sets their strategy, makes the decisions. Very dangerous. Because unless you can look at the information in different ways, you're locked into the old concepts. And our ability to handle information has completely smothered, eclipsed, pushed out the need to think.
Well, it's that old saying, I get so much information, I don't know what to think.
Yes, exactly. So that's the danger. So the key answer to your question is we have not paid specific attention to thinking. One of the projects I have this year, I'm going to set up in some country a magnificent palace of thinking.
A palace of
thinking.
Literally?
Beautiful. Literally. To give thinking the dignity, the centrality, the importance it needs.
Is there one place on the planet,
yes,
a country or a people, that seem to really embrace your ideas more quickly than others?
Well, it depends on individuals. What happened in Venezuela, there was a professor of philosophy who liked my ideas. He joined the Compay party. His name was Luis Alberto Machado. And they said, what ministry do you want? He said, I want a new ministry for the development of intelligence. He came to London to see me, said, I've got this new ministry, I don't know what to do. He invited me back to Venezuela. I trained 250 teachers. They then trained themselves, 107,000 teachers, and thinking by laws in every school. But depending on that one guy to make it happen.
If you run into somebody, have a conversation with someone, and they've been trained in your methods, can you tell immediately?
Well, the answer is probably yes. But one of the most difficult things is in meeting someone to know about. I'll give an example. Last year I was having breakfast with Richard Branson. Nice, genial, smiley fellow. No concept. This guy runs a business bigger than Coca-Cola. In meeting people, you can't really get an idea. But the answer specifically to your question, yes, I probably would.
How much of what we now deal with in our culture, with the television, with the media, with the computers, with this rapid fire, how much of that produces a conflict which makes good thinking or effective thinking more difficult?
Yes. Also, what happens with computers, people believe you don't have to think, you just search for the answer. Teaching thinking in England to unemployed youngsters for just 5 hours increased the employment rate 500%, stronger than anything they'd ever done. And a year later, 96% was still in employment. In other words, it's a huge potential, not difficult to do, makes more difference to people than anything else you could do. But we neglect it. We neglect it.
How much of what we see in the way of strife in this world, wars, conflicts, the product of bad thinking?
Let's take an example. Israel and Palestine. The Israelis probably the most intelligent group of people on the surface of the earth. The Palestinians, the most intelligent Arabs. For 60 years, they've been next to each other, unable to sort out their problem. Very simple suggestion I put in the New York Times some time ago. Let them vote in each other's elections. Now, there's no way the Israelis would have elected Hamas. There's no way the Palestinians would have elected Sharon. So now you elect constructive people who have a chance of getting it, and you design the way forward. Again, with the rockets, Gaza, and so on, okay, we give the people in Gaza a grant, X million dollars, but every time you fire a rocket, you lose $5 million. Now, you're not a local hero. They say, you think you're brave, you've cost us a hospital, you've cost us this. Design is the word, designing the way forward, using human needs, ambitions, greeds, fears, but design, not judgment.
But there is an element there, and we only have about a minute left here, which strikes me as you're hoping that all of the centuries of acrimony that exist, not only among this group, but other groups as well, all the prejudices, all the biases, evaporate and people think logically.
Yes, I'll give you an example. South Africa, Karee mine, platinum, 7 different tribes working there, Zulus, Xhosas, Sutus, Shangaan. Okay, they used to have 210 fights every month between these 7 tribes, with centuries of hostilities, enmities. Okay. Colleagues of mine taught them thinking. What happened? The fights dropped from 210 a month to 4.
Fascinating. Well, perhaps you have the secret. We will continue to watch your work around the world, and we appreciate your coming by to help us think better as well. Edward de Bono, the book is Free or Unfree? Are Americans really free? Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.